Oh, she's gonna give you a handout for estate and household auctions. Let me tell you something.
It's a way to get started.
You can pay for this class with an estate auction, just like that. Pay for it all. Pay for school, pay for your speaker system, buy some technology,
Yep,
some of them $7 business cards.
yep.
Case Red Bull.
Yeah, can't be Red Bull.
Right on.
Your wallet looks as good as your face.
Pretty much said his face. You have lost your mind.
Girl ain't right.
Oh my! Oh, now she's starting and everything.
I think she's outside smoking something and break.
No, y'all. I knew from a young age that if this was natural and I ever tried drugs, I would kill myself. I would jump off of a building.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna, now, I will tell you, I'm gonna roll through this. I don't want it to get delayed, okay?
Okay.
Because if I can get through this, I'll have just enough time to teach a quick bookkeeping class, and then we're done for the day. Okay, so, estate auctions. The beginning process is you either find somebody that's willing to talk to you about an estate, or they call you, or whatever it takes. Maybe you heard about it, and you know, if you go to sales, I will tell you this, if you get out and go to sales, you're gonna meet people that go to sales. People go to garage sales, people that go to auctions, but you gotta get out, you gotta see people. It's not gonna happen from sitting at home, okay? Go to the coffee shop, go have coffee. And I'm not talking about these coffee shops in Dallas, I'm talking about these coffee shops in small towns where the people gather, where the farmers gather in the morning, and all the regulars, all the regulars meet. You're gonna go look at the auction. You're gonna meet the executor or the executrix. The executrix is a female version of the executor. You may be dealing with an administrator. You may be dealing with a bank officer. Sometimes the bank officer, you have a lot of older people who don't have children. And you're gonna see that become more common and more common as you see the populations go down. If you look at the different demographics around the world, population is going down. People are not having 6 and 8 kids. There are some people that do, but in the vast majority of people and professionals are having fewer and fewer children. It's a choice. It's a choice. Bank officer, trustee, attorney, family member. You got to figure out where you're going to have this auction. If you live in a small town, you can have it almost anywhere you want to because you don't have nearly the restrictions that you have in the city. But you can't go over here to Frisco, Texas, in one of these planned communities that has a gate out front, go have a garage auction or a garage sale. Can't do it. So you may be dealing with a neighborhood situation and just find out. HOAs, homeowners associations. In Kansas City, where we had a home, you couldn't just have a garage sale or an auction. You couldn't do that. They only allowed it once a year. That doesn't really fit into the auction mode. But I will tell you this is what you can do if you live in let's say you live in Dallas-Fort Worth, and you live within an hour of this area, or Houston. If you want to start an auction business, and you want to do estate sales, and you want to do furniture and antiques, go get you a small building somewhere. You don't have to have a big building. A small building would be fine. But do direct mail and do social media into all the restricted areas of the cities, like the gated communities. People die in those houses every day, and they don't know what to do with the stuff, and they can't have a garage sale. So why not put a piece of mail in their hand, either through the mailbox, something that they'll hold on to, and it can say something like, we buy households, we buy estates, we buy antiques, we buy, sell, whatever, and have a picture of your truck, your what looks like a U-Haul or something, have it wrapped, your company name on the back, and now you got a number for people to call and an email or a website where people can go to that you sell that type of merchandise. I guarantee you it'll work. If I wasn't doing what I do and had been in the business for 40 years, that's what I would do tomorrow to start my auction company. If I wanted to get something going, if I was trying to create cash and get in the business, I'm going to do something like that. because there's a demand for it. Del Webb, the senior citizen neighborhoods for adult living, you know, you gotta be 55, I think, to live there. That is like Estate Central.
Target-rich environment.
Yeah, it's perfect. So think about what I'm talking about. Signage, you gotta know where you can put signs and where you can't. You gotta worry about parking. Don't worry a lot about this stuff. I'm just telling you, in a lot of places, there's plenty of parking and there's plenty of places to put signs, but there are communities where you can't. I lived in an area of Dallas where you couldn't just put signs up. And I'm thinking, okay, what am I gonna do to solve that problem? Because I had a lot of estate sales and a lot of auctions around Dallas, but you couldn't just stick a sign in the ground because the police would come along, or the sign police, or code enforcement would come and chop up your sign, or take your signs and put it in sign jail, and then you have to go to the City Farmers Branch and rebuy the sign you've already paid for. I bought a group of trailers, box trailers, you know, single axle and double axle trailers. I had them all wrapped with a giant arrow that says auction. And I parked them at intersections in Dallas near where the auction was.
That's smart.
So as you're driving down Greenville Avenue, here's a trailer that says auction with a giant arrow on it. It's got my website, it's got my phone number, and people would turn and go down there, and there we are. Cheapest advertising in the world, and they can't pull it up and throw it in sign jail. And you just basically park your truck with your trailer behind you where you want, as long as you're legal, it all works, it just works. If I was in the farming business, if I was out in the middle of nowhere, West Texas or Oklahoma, buy you a fleet of 40-foot box trailers that have been retired, that have good enough tires to get them around, that you can still hook up to brakes, have your 40-foot van or 50-foot trailers with a giant auction sign on it, and put your website and your phone number, and now you become the person that people look to. They go, I want to hire that guy because let me tell you, he's so damn successful. He has his own tractor trailers. And you have that trailer sitting there on that 200 acres, you're going to get it sold, and you're going to get a lot of action. I'm a big believer. I got a lot of friends in the auction business that use van trailers, big 40-foot trailers and 50-foot trailers, 45-foot trailers to promote their auctions. They only use those trailers for their auctions, but you can set them out in the field, go buy you 50 acres somewhere and just set it out on the interstate. Nothing they can do about it. You don't have to have a paid-for billboard. You've got a trailer sitting on your property. Okay? All right. Local permits and restrictions, just check the area that you're located in, whatever town, city, state, etc., and what the permits and restrictions are. Conduct the auction inside or out, you'll have to figure out where you need to have the auction. If the house is big enough, have it in the house. Most of the time, I am anti-have the auction in the house. I'd rather have it under a tent, outside, big tent, chairs, put you up a podium or lectern like this, you know, or build one. You can buy them too. They sell these where you have a platform where you can sit, do your AV thing under a tent. You don't have to move anything. Sell it all sitting just like this, under a tent in the backyard or the front yard. Works like a champ. Plus, I don't want people tracking in the house. Let me tell you something. Between rain, snow, all the elements, I don't want 100, 200 people trampling through that house. Okay? Just don't want it. Anyway. What are the sellers planning on keeping and what do they want to sell? Remember I talked about the guy that calls me from Oklahoma City. I go in there and by the time I get through, I realize they don't know what they're selling because it's pretty much the family's going to take all the good stuff. So determine what they're going to sell before you sign a contract. What style and condition are the items in? Guys, furniture isn't worth much anymore. This society that we live in is going down here to IKEA at the corner of the Tollway and 121, right here. And they're buying crappy cardboard furniture, and they think it's worth something, and they use it, and it's usually broken within 2 to 3 years, and they go buy something new. We, on the other hand, the older people, our family grew up excited about hardwood, hard rock maple, oak furniture, cherry furniture, antique furniture. We had a great appreciation for craftsmanship. They don't have that today. All the cool stuff that we thought was cool in 1970, 1980, they don't even want it. It'll end up in the dump. So just be aware that just because somebody calls you and says, hey, I want you to look at grandma's estate, and you go look at it, doesn't mean the rest of the world cares anything about it. Look on the internet, see what you can see for sale, do your research, learn about used furniture. Go to a used furniture store, go to a mini mall, go to an antique shop. Look and see what values are. What are things selling for? Get on Craigslist. Go to garage sales. You can buy anything today. It's not like it used to be. Used to be you'd have a sale in a town. There was no Craigslist. There was no internet. Everybody went to the auction to find out what the people had. And there's 200 of them showing up, and they all want the same dresser. And they're paying $200 for something today that I can't give away. So just be aware of values. Is there enough money in it to even justify the auction? And I'd say that's happening less and less. Because too many times, if they don't have some cars, or they don't have a golf cart or two, or some guns, or some appliances, or some coins, or some good electronics or something, unless they have some of that stuff, then it may not be worth having an auction for. May not. I like to get the real estate and then everything in it, and then we can figure out if we want to have an auction or not. But I want the real estate. The money's in the real estate, guys. If I get that real estate, even if it's a $70,000, $80,000 house, and I can charge a 10% buyer's premium, you can make $5,000 or $10,000. That's making money in the business. You don't want to work for 3 months on a sale that's going to bring in $10,000 on personal property, and by the time you get through, it didn't make you any money because your labor ate it up. And then you get through and you're upset. You're upset at the end of the day because you didn't make any money and you can't figure out why. Well, I can tell you why. Labor ate you up. Time is not your friend. The clock runs. People want to get paid by the hour, and by the time you pay them $15 an hour, or 10 or 15, $20 an hour, let me tell you something. I pay $10 to $15 for just a warm body to set up an auction, and have a hard time finding that. Does the house have electricity? I need electricity. I don't need gas, and I don't need water. I just need electricity so I can see what I'm trying to set up and prepare. Can I add consignments to the auction? I do. Typically, if I need to, I will add consignments. So if a house is there, it's got furniture, but there's no cars, something to enhance it. Remember, you're trying to draw people. You can't draw people to nothing. Give them something to come to. Yes, we have a pickup, we have a car, we got some coins, we got some gold coins, got some silver coins, got some long guns. If it fits, make it work. But you'll have to figure that one out. Can you use the person's name in the advertising? Always have that in your estate contract, where it gives you permission to use the decedent's name in the advertising. Some people are weird about it. Oh, we can't mention Mama because Mama wouldn't like to have her name in the paper as a dead person. Well, that's what I have to tell them. Just trust me, Mama don't care. What commission rate do we charge? All we can. Within reason, right? If I do an estate auction, my rates are probably going to start somewhere in the 15 to 20% range and going to go up from there. I don't work for 5%. I don't work for 10% on personal property. You can't make any money that way. Now, if you give me a big farm with a lot of equipment, with some machinery, now we might talk about 10 to 15%. But I'm not going to be talking 5. Now, if they've got a super expensive tractor or a combine that's a couple $300,000, I may make them a special deal on those individual items. But most of the time, guess what? They owe on them. So I'm trying to clear a note. Probably half the time there's a note on that piece of equipment. I've got to find a buyer that will cover the cost, because like everything else, when you drive it around the block, it depreciates. you buy a pickup or a car, you know how things drop. Now, right now, we're in a weird world of really expensive used vehicles. But even today, if I go buy an F-350 1-ton Ford, if I drive it today, it's gonna depreciate. You're not gonna get what you paid for it. And unless you put a lot of money down, you're not gonna have enough equity, to move it. You still have that problem. All right, who pays for the advertising and marketing? They do. I'm not paying for it. Who pays for the auction setup? That's negotiable. Typically, I'll pay for the setup. It's gonna be in my, I'll bury that into my commission,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna charge, first off, you have to justify your commission, right? It shouldn't just be for calling the auction and locking and tagging. You need, to say, well, look, I've gotta charge you 25-30%, because I gotta cover all my expenses,
The tent.
and I'm gonna charge extra for the tent.
You are?
I'm gonna
Okay.
charge extra for the, chair.
Chair- all your
Anything
rentals?
that I'm having to rent,
Okay,
they're gonna pay for it. And here's the other thing. If you're in the business long enough, you buy your tent,
yeah,
you buy it used from a tent company. They're always decommissioning rental stuff. I was probably the largest auctioneer in the United States for selling rental companies for about 20 years.
really?
Every time they closed, they would say, well, we're gonna have a inventory reduction sale. We're gonna sell 10 of our tents. Used to be a big company here called Alexander Tent. They may still be in business, I don't know. But I used to sell their used tents. As they get down to, they'd had it for 10 years, they want to go buy a new tent, we'd sell 5 of their old ones. Or they would sell chairs. Chairs get old, chairs get tired, tables get tired, this room gets tired, draperies get tired, covers get tired, stacked chairs get tired. We'd go in, we had a guy here that owned a company called Daltex Rental. He had about 7 different rental companies, all Daltex, all over the Metroplex. Jack and I became really good friends. He bought a lot of stuff from me, and when he decided that, he wanted to liquidate some stuff, he'd call me. And then when it came time to get out of the business, we sold all this stuff. And so there's a good money in that kind of stuff, but if you buy it, guess what you can do? You can rent it. So instead of hiring a company like Jack's where you're renting the tent, you buy a used tent, then you rent the tent to your customers. You can pay for it in probably 2 or 3
Yeah, 2 or
sales,
3
and then
sales.
from then on, you're making money on it. You become your own rental company, okay?
It's not a
Same
bad
thing with the
idea.
chairs. All right, who pays for cleanup and auction day labor? We're gonna pay auction day labor. The only time I charge more for setup is if I'm liquidating a hoarder. And I've liquidated a hoarder's home, and it costs 5 times what it would cost to just do a regular house.
Wow.
And so I'm charging by the hour, by the person, for however many hours it takes. That's all you can do. I'm not gonna eat it, okay? And then, who pays for cleanup? We will do basic pickup and cleanup and put things in trash sacks. But if it is something different, if we have to get a roll-off dumpster, and we have, then they're gonna pay for the dumpster, okay? Or any other bigger containers. Who pays for security? They do. I don't pay for security. And the reason is, security costs more than regular people. If I'm gonna have to hire 2 off-duty policemen at $40 an hour, my seller's gonna pay for it. I'm not eating that, okay? What day of the week is best for estates? I don't know. I used to. I don't anymore. Probably,
Wait, he told us. Wasn't it Wednesdays and Sundays?
That was Saturday, Thursday, Friday.
well, I don't know who he is, but he isn't me.
Sorry, I think it was
Yeah.
Rich.
So, well, and in Colorado, that may be right.
You're right,
Here's
you're
what I'm gonna tell you, is that most of my estates were on
I wrote that
Saturdays.
down.
But when I started getting really, really busy selling businesses, they were on Saturdays, and I would do my estates on Sunday afternoon. All my advertising was very clear. Go to church, have lunch with your family, and come spend the afternoon with us at the auction.
Makes sense.
If it was too big to be sold in 4 or 5 hours, then we might do some of it Saturday and some of it Sunday, okay? And if that doesn't work, in some communities, there are some communities in the United States that will not recognize an auction on Sunday. I'm just telling you, there are pockets of the country that are far, far right. And in those areas, don't bucket, just do something different. So I may have a sale on Friday and Saturday, and that works really good for me.
Well, if it's
If you
Mennonite or
go-
Amish.
If you go to Enid, Oklahoma, where they have lots and lots of auctions, they have an auction every day. There will be an estate auction or some type of an auction every single day of the week in Enid, Oklahoma. That is auction mecca. But it's also very competitive financially. So the rates get lower to do those auctions because you got 50 auctioneers in Enid, Oklahoma. Special considerations on selecting a date. I think you got to see what's going on in your community. We've already talked about this before. Hunting season, federal holidays, hotel accommodations, religious holidays, whatever's going on in your area. If your town is going to have a parade for Christmas, then you probably don't want to have your auction the day of that. Maybe they have a fall festival. Maybe they're having a big auction at the church this weekend. Well, you don't want to be up against the church. Everybody's going to be at that. So you have to look at what's going on in your community. Payment methods. All that is the same as every other auction we talked about. So I'm not going to get into all that. It's the same old thing, right? All right, get the contract signed. Make sure the person signing the contract has the authority. Just because they're showing it to you doesn't mean they even have the authority to sign the contract. And they'll act like they do. They've got a key to the house. They're going to show you around. I want to see a letter of testamentary. I want to see something from the judge in the community. I want to see some paperwork showing who has the authority as the executor, either a copy of the will. I really don't want to see the will, but I do want to see what's been probated. I want to know that they have the legal authority to sign the agreement and let me do the auction. Setup, you may need tables. You need tables? Well, tables are as cheap as they've ever been, but they're also plastic.
Yeah.
And you know what I like? Plastic tables. You know why? Pressed wood tables weigh 6 times a
Bingo.
plastic table. I had trailers full of tables, folding tables, banquet tables, regular tables, 6-foot tables, round tables that weighed way too much. Now at least the tables are lightweight. You can throw them out there, put stuff on them, get through, wipe them off, clean them up, fold them up, put them up in the building. I got buildings full of tables, but they're plastic top now. Pull out the contents of cabinets, drawers, behind pictures, under drawers, behind mirrors. Check the pockets of the clothing in the closets, inside books. Old people hide money. Old people hide money in books. Old people hide money behind pictures. Old people put things, come over to my house. I'll show you where old people work. They put it under rugs. I give you a couple of examples real quick. I always include this in my class. I sold out the gentleman that ran the post office. He was the post office guy. He'd been there for 100 years. He was single. He was 80 or 90 when he died, but he was the postmaster. And so my attorney was his attorney, and he handled the estate. And he said, Mike, you want to sell this guy's house and everything in it and the real estate? And I said, sure. Little bitty house. The house wasn't, his house was about 1/4 the size of this room. Okay? Lived in a 1-bedroom on the corner. Real cute little cottage. So I go in there, and the first thing I notice is there's a bunch of trash sacks in the bedroom. I thought, well, that doesn't look right. Somebody's already been here. Somebody's been digging. And of course, anytime there's a trash sack, I get nervous. I don't like looking at trash sacks. You know what I mean? I've seen too many movies, you know, where you open the sack and there's somebody's head looking at you. That scares me. Well, there were sacks in the room, and I opened the sack, and but you know, the other thing I noticed is all he had a chest of drawers over here, and the drawers were all out, and they were all empty. So I'm assuming that whoever had been there had put all of his underwear and personal things in the sack. Open the sack up, and socks, you know, t-shirts, old things that old people wear. Okay? Leggings, suspenders,
Garters.
garters.
He was close.
But there was one thing I found, and then that's where I started getting upset. I started looking, there's all these sheets. Not sheets like the bed, sheets like sheets of stamps. So whoever had gotten in there was gutting the house, and he had been collecting stamps for 80 years. And when you're the postmaster, you get first shot at all the new stamps. That's kind of your, ooh, he gets excited, right? And so he would buy full sheets going back to the turn of the century. And his cabinets were full of stamps. And whoever this person was had gone in and taken all this stuff and threw it in the trash like it was garbage. Anyway, that was one thing. And so, but I just had a feeling about this guy. I mean, and you do that, you end up getting a feeling about the people, old people, and what they do with stuff. And he had money market accounts, and he also was with Merrill Lynch. So, I mean, he had put his money away. He wasn't a waster of money. And so I went into the living room and had hardwood floors. And there was a Philco radio, one of these old antique cabinet Philco models from the 1920s or 30s. You could just see the old man sitting there listening to FDR on December the 7th, right? And I go over there, but something told me, pull the thing away from the wall. So I pulled it from the wall. There was no cover on the back of the radio. That's where his coin collection was. He had rolls and rolls and rolls of silver coins, and his coin collection was, the radio didn't work. It had no tubes. He used it as his safe. That's where he had it. So that's where his coins were. And then I found a gun and a handgun and all kinds of stuff. But that's where a lot of his stuff was. So always, whenever you look at an estate, look everywhere. Second example, Denton, Texas. There was a guy named Charlie Muirhead. He owned a swap shop in downtown Denton on the square. He had a business partner named Walt Parker, who is he was with the University of North Texas. He was involved with the athletic department. He was also a state representative. They've both been dead for 20 years at least. But this is when I was in my early 20s. And they were regular customers of mine. And I knew what they bought. They always bought kitchen appliances, gas stoves, and furniture for the dorms at North Texas. So they were always selling the kids for their apartments and their houses or their rentals, the things to operate their homes with. And so I had this estate, and I was doing it for the First State Bank of Denton. And so the trust department was handling, it was the Hackworth estate. Mr. and Mrs. Hackworth owned the Pepsi Cola bottling plant and Mountain Dew and RC Cola, all the odd brands, right? But they had made a tremendous amount of money, and they lived in a nice home in North Denton. And so I'm in this house. Well, they were both in the rest home at this point. You know, this would have been in the early 80s, and they had to be in their 80s at that time. So I had to clean the house out and throw away all the stuff to get rid of and get it ready for auction. Well, we had the auction, day of the sale. There was a lot of interest in the kitchen. You know, if you're familiar with side-by-side refrigerators and Sub-Zero and some, a Sub-Zero refrigerator in 1982 means you had a lot of money. If you had, you had one of those, it was still a used refrigerator, but it's still nice. And I'm thinking, okay, if we get $600-700 for this refrigerator, that's about market for this used refrigerator. And I start selling it. Here we go, 200, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and Charlie and his partner are standing there. And then there's another couple of guys that obviously they were there to buy the refrigerator. And it goes 8, 900, 1,000, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. At this point, something's up. I know something is not right. I'm happy, but it doesn't make sense. There's no reason for this refrigerator to bring this kind of money. There must be something in the refrigerator that we missed. And that's back in the days before we threw groceries out and cleaned everything out, right? There was just stuff in there. 18, 19, 2000, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 3,000. Gets up to about and I'm looking at them like, nice. I got to 32, 33. I said, sold, 3,300. I looked over at Charlie and I said, okay, Charlie, what's in the refrigerator? He said, well, I'm glad you asked. And so he opened up the freezer, and what Mrs. Hackworth had done is she had, and this was a big refrigerator because it was a Sub-Zero, right? It's not a Whirlpool or Frigidaire. Opens up the refrigerator, and he says, and it's down in the freezer compartment. She had literally frozen, and she had wrapped in aluminum foil and frozen all of her sterling silver. So she had a freezer full of sterling silver, and that's really what they were trying to buy. They didn't care about the refrigerator. I mean, it'd be nice to have it. It's going to the swap shop, but anyway. So the lesson there is always look in refrigerators, look in your kitchen drawers, look under the drawers. People will take things. People are getting real crafty about how to hide money.
What do you do with the money when you find it?
Turn it into the trustee. Also, mantles. Lots of people alter a mantle, and especially older homes. They will take the mantle off. They will carve out areas, and that becomes their safe. It's where they hide money. Then they slide the mantle back on. I know this because my mother did it. I saw it. You just have to look everywhere. So my third example, which is kind of the coup de grace of I'm hiding some stuff. My grandfather had a friend named Cy Hare, and he lived in Gainesville, and his wife and my grandparents danced every Saturday night at the VFW, and there was always a band playing, and they would dance every Saturday night, and they would dance with this couple that they worked with at their manufacturing facility. And so, and I'm a little kid, right? So I grew up around them. I'm just like, like a grandkid. But they liked me and treated me well. Well, as they got older and I became an auctioneer, I ended up getting a lot of this business in our hometown. Well, he passed away, and I was hired to liquidate their estate, which is actually about 4 blocks from my farm up there in Gainesville right now. Cy had taken a regular 2-car garage and turned it into a machine shop, okay? And he even changed the electrical to handle a major machine. He had a machining center. He had a lathe. He had all kinds of stuff. In it, there was a lot of materials. He had a lot of steel, a lot of stainless, a lot of copper, brass, etc. So we lotted all the machines, and we lotted everything that was really worth anything that we thought was worth something. And there was a lot of just loose hardware and nuts and bolts and crap like that. Some flat steel. So as we get down to the final lotting, this is a house in South Gainesville where in the old days, guys, you'd walk up to a garage door and it would be, say it would be galvanized or sheet metal, and you'd reach down and grab the handle and it was spring loaded, and you'd pull that thing up and the whole door would roll up into the house, into the garage. And so we opened the door, we had the auction, all good. At the end of the sale, the last thing we sold was all the bolts and nuts and miscellaneous hardware that was laying around and on the floor. Didn't think anything about it. And I sold it. And up above the door, there was a bunch of coffee cans and Folgers cans and Maxwell House cans, and that was his, that's where he had all his bolts and nuts and extra stuff, and didn't think anything about it. Sold that. And I sold it to a guy named Jim. And he was from Denton. And he had gone through this school about 3 years earlier, probably around 1995, 96. Nice guy. And he was into woodworking and machines and all that. Anyway, 4 or 5 years later, I've got the contract to do the Dallas Independent School District, and I'm down here in Dallas, and I'm doing my regular quarterly auction. And I see Jim walk across the parking lot. I'm sitting on the dock, and I see him coming. And I thought he looked kind of weird. He had a weird look. So he's walking across, and he comes up the stairs, and I said, "What's wrong, Jim? You look like you're bothered about something." And he says, "Well, I am." He's a big guy. He said, I am bothered." I said, "Well," I felt like Father O'Jones, come here, my boy, tell me your problems. And he said, well, he said, I've had something bothering me for about 3 or 4 years. And I said, what's that? And he said, well, you remember that auction up in Gainesville? And I said, yeah. And I had sold that scrap, right? And I sold it for like $80, $90. And he said, well, you know, I bought that. And he said, then I spent the next 2 days loading out bolts and nuts and cans and all that. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, you know, right above the garage door. I said, yeah. And he said, remember all the bolts and nuts? I said, yeah. And he said, well, as I brought them down, he said, I had my trailer, and I would just, because I'm going to the scrap yard, I'm going to the salvage, I just dumped cans out. And then that's when the money came out. And that's where Cy Hare had hid all of his, he had rat-holed all of his cash. So in these cans, there were rolls of cash, and he'd put them in the middle, and then he'd pour nuts and bolts on top of it. So he always had a bank that Mama didn't know about. And so I said, and you know, of course, you kind of have this sinking feeling like, I don't think I want to know the rest of the story, Paul Harvey. And he said, yeah, he said, you know, it was right at $10,000. So he had pocketed $10,000 out of my coffee cans. So my lesson to you on this one is, no matter what you do, if you're going to do this business, look at everything. If it's cans, there may be more to it than just a can. And I'll guarantee you, he's not the only guy that ever did that. That's something my grandfather would have done, and my other grandfather would have done. He would have put money in cans. So whenever you clean out the garage, or you clean out a building, or their machine shop, you look where the guy spends most of his time. And you start dumping that stuff out and just start looking for the money.
As a buyer, though, I mean, he legally bought the contents. That's what you showed him. You didn't know what was in it, right?
Doesn't matter.
So, I mean,
He didn't owe me jack. He didn't have to tell me. And even if he did tell me, I have no right to go back. He bought those cans and everything in them and all the stuff on the floor. I'm simply telling you, be aware, pay attention.
He just felt bad about it.
Huh?
He just felt bad about it.
He felt guilty because he was a decent guy. But you know what he did? You know, he probably when he found that money, he squirreled it away and hid it in his truck and probably looked around, oh my God. And then here's the other thing, his guilt got to him. And then he probably came to 30 of my auctions before he had enough to tell me. Not that it made me feel any better. But he got it off of his shoulder, and so the guilt was off of him. But what you might do, you can do whatever you want, I don't personally care. But you might want to put in your auction contract something to the effect that if you find any cash while doing your work, that you will receive a certain percentage of whatever you find. Because you're doing their work for them. Remember, you're doing their work. So if you go in there and you find $10,000, they're not going to probably get it if you accidentally sell it. But if you find it, I don't think it would be a terrible thing to get a bonus. And then you go, hey, Bob, in going through all your mother's stuff that you guys have already gone through 6 times, we found this. And in your contract, as you well know, because we go everything in our contract, I go over with people. There's no ahas or shock, you know, oh, by the way deals. It's like in going through all that stuff, we found $10,000, and in our contract, you know, we get 10%. 10%, you know, that's $1,000 for being a nice guy and turning the money. Okay? You don't have to. I don't have to, but I could. I'm just trying to give you something to think about. Maybe you're just a wonderful human being. But you know what? Your help usually isn't. You know, I was having a conversation today, and you know, today you can't trust people. You don't know them. Even vendors that we hired to work at our house, you don't know. We have cameras everywhere, so we see everybody coming and going. But even then, you don't know for sure. You don't know who these people are. I'm not doing checks on people that are, you know, painting outside my house or working in the lawn. I don't know who these people are, so you really need to, just be aware of who you have around, okay? I'm just telling you, things walk off. Anyway, I thought that was something to think about.
Yeah.
Evaluate items for advertising, determine the items to be advertised, photograph the items, mail, website, newspaper, advertise it however you plan on doing it. Make sure you do the time, location. There's your terms and conditions. This hadn't changed from the other sales we did, okay? Plan the auction. Are you going to sell inside the house or outside or both? I'd say try to do most of it outside if you can. If the weather's good enough, I really don't want to go inside the house. Determine what items would be sold outside and what should be left in. One thing you can do, if it's a small deal, because not everything justifies a tent, right?
Right.
I had a friend named Dave Kessler from Ohio, and Dave weighed about 500 pounds. And he was a friend of ours from Missouri Auction School, and he was telling me that he doesn't like to move everything out of the house. He likes to sell the stuff in the house, but he doesn't go in the house to sell it. He'll let people look at it, but he'll sell it from outside. So he would sit on the front porch and auction off the 14 items in the house. So he would say to you, if you were at his auction, hey folks, go inside, take a look at all the stuff in the house, and we're going to auction off the blue sheet. And there would be a sheet of paper. Guess what color it was? Blue. And the blue sheet would be those lots inside the house. It might be the refrigerator, washer, dryer, stove, bedroom suite number 1, bedroom suite number 2, and so on and so forth. There'd be probably 15, 20 items inside the house, but he would literally stand outside and auction those items off outside, and then they would remove it, okay? Now today, the beautiful thing about the internet is we can have pictures, you can bid online, we don't have to stand out on the front porch, right? But you have to decide if you want to sell it in the house or outside the house. The more you move stuff, the more it gets broke. If you break something, who's responsible?
Depends on your
Contract.
Depends on your terms and conditions. Don't let kids do an adult job. Don't let a 15-year-old pick up a $4,000 china cabinet with bowed glass. This sounds like I know what I'm talking about. Okay. Clean furniture, well, wipe down furniture, use lemon oil in Old English, but don't get into this major cleaning. That's not your job. You're not in the cleaning business because you may damage the furniture. Don't put really good stickers on furniture. Don't put it on the wood. It damages wood. It can damage upholstery. It can damage tassels. Don't tear up what you're trying to sell by putting the wrong type of sticker. Use ties. I'm real big on zip ties. I love zip ties. Zip ties have been very good to me. I use zip ties with a card. I'll put the lot tag on the card. Sometimes I have my card, you know what I'm talking about, like a manila card. I actually have them printed with the tag or our lock tag on the card. So I don't even use the lock tags. They're already on a card, and then we just use a zip tie and tie it to the furniture, and then we don't damage anything. Make box locks on kitchen items, damaged items, and lower value items. We talked about box locks the other day. Pre-lock the auction, yes. Why would you tag as you go? I wouldn't. Selling in numerical order, yes. Do you break order and move around? No. It's lot number 1 through 100. I don't skip around. If somebody comes in and says, hey Mike, could you go ahead and sell lot number 33? I've got to go. I got to be at the ball game. I'm sorry, Bob. Get online. Get on our app and bid on it online going down the road. I can't change the order of the auction. We're going to sell it in the order that we're working in. Stickers on the furniture, no. Stickers on books, no. When you go into an estate, look at the books that are on the bookshelf and look for first editions. You are looking for first edition books, and you are looking for autographed copies of books. A lot of money in that, especially with older people. They have older books. Older books can be worth a lot. Yeah, you need to know something, and you need to look them up. All of this stuff is out there on the internet now. There's no reason you can't do your research, okay? So if you got a first edition or you have an autographed copy, put it inside of a plastic sleeve, like a baggie, like a hefty bag. You can buy thousands of them. You can buy them cheaper than you can buy them at Walmart or something. Go to one of these supply houses, get on Mr. Uline's catalog and order some bags to put them in and put your stickers on the outside. Yeah.
Would you contact the local antique book dealer and say, hey, we're doing an estate sale and I've come across some signed copies of Elmer Kelton or some signed?
Yeah, and the other thing I would do is I would create a database of book buyers.
So you don't
Don't
have to-
depend on one person.
So you don't have to find somebody named Leona.
Right.
Mike, when you said don't tag as you go, you mean like when you're going through stuff, you're gonna organize this stuff? that you
No,
said?
back in the old days when I got in the auction business, we didn't tag anything until the day of. Because you remember, everything we did was live. So we'd show up with a roll of tags at an estate sale. Let's just pretend this was a room at a home. And we'd start over there and I'd say, okay, today we're gonna start with that mirror. And we'd take a tag and slap it on there. That's lot number 1. And we just work our way around the room. We'd lot and tag as we went. So you wouldn't do that today. Those days are over. I did 14 Lowe's stores that way. Probably took us 10 hours longer because we were tagging as we went. If it had been pre-lotted, pre-tagged, and pre-organized, pre-cataloged, it'd have been a lot faster sale. Of course, that was in the 80s. This is not the 80s anymore. But things are much faster now. And here's the other thing, online bidding makes all the difference in the world. You know what? I don't like online auctions except when I'm buying. Because I don't want to have to drive to Las Vegas or fly to Las Vegas to look at all the stuff I want to buy. Does that make sense? I love to go to live auctions, but you can't go to all of them. And I can buy at 5 auctions today from right here. Okay? Tags on mirrors? No. Tags on paintings? No. Tagging autographed memorabilia? Hell no. Record albums and tapes. You know what I did this week? I'm not kidding you. Monday, Sunday night or Monday night, I got home from auction school and I did something I haven't done in 40 years. I took out and unboxed all of my record collection.
Paul Simon.
Paul Simon was in there. But it's true. I unloaded 55 years worth of records that I collected. And put them on, then they're all in alphabetical order right now.
Bet you got
It's been
nostalgia.
about it's just terrible. But somebody had bought me one of these brand new record players, a real nice one, an expensive one. I haven't taken it out of the box yet. But just looking at those records meant a lot to me. But if they'd all had a bunch of lot tags on them, I'd have been mad. So don't put lot tags on record albums because the record album cover is worth more than the record.
So
They're considered artwork.
how do you tag it though? I mean,
Well, you just don't. You just don't. You can do a lot of things. You can make a list of records and not put a tag on it. You can have the name of the album.
Describe it.
If they're worth something. Look, there's a lot of records aren't worth anything, right? They're just records.
Tons of
But you don't put stickers on them. That's all I'm going to tell you. And if it's really worth something, put it in plastic, just like the books. Okay? I could literally do this entire room with record covers going back to the 40s. So, anyway, and also, don't leave record albums or tapes or CDs in the sun.
no milk.
And what happens is you're pulling stuff out of the house, you're pulling stuff out of the garage, you're pulling stuff out of the shop, and maybe it's 6 o'clock in the morning and it's dark. Well, guess what? At some point, the sun's going to come. And then you walk out there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and the Beatles album is curved over. Not a lot of demand.
Hard days night.
Okay.
is this from experience?
Yes, I've had experience. Signage for your auction, just make sure it's professional. I'm not gonna get into a whole lot of detail here, but when you have a sign in the yard, make sure it has auction, online or live and online auction. The main thing with an auction sign today is it needs to basically tell you in 3 or 4 words what you're selling, the date, time, and place, the website, your license number and your name, a phone number, and that's about it. You don't need a lot more than that. Get them to go to your website, let the website do the selling, okay? Restrooms, you need those on day of sale. I do not allow people in the bathrooms of the home. I never do that and haven't for years. We will rent porta-cans, portable toilets, and my seller will pay for them. I'm not paying for that. They'll pay for that. But I'm saving them a plumbing bill. And I don't let people in those bathrooms. We put barrier tape up so people can't go in there. We don't want people messing up a house that I'm getting ready to try to sell. Make food available. Well, you need to find a caterer or somebody in your area that has a food truck that can come and sell food. I'm big on that. You have to give them something to eat and drink or you'll lose your crowd. Tents, tables, and chairs, I already talked about it. Advantages and disadvantages to owning. I like to rent the first few years, but if you make it in the auction business, then you can go buy your equipment. Boxes, tape, and wrapping paper. We talked about printing our own boxes. I still think that's a brilliant idea. I'd do that tomorrow if I was getting back in that business. And then what do you do about shipping online purchases? What I'm going to do is if I have an auction in Denton, Texas tomorrow, and we're going to have a big live and online auction, or just online. I'm going to get with UPS, the local UPS office, or somebody that runs an independent mailing store that does U.S. mail and has mailboxes and does shipping and packing. I'm going to get with them, and they're going to handle my stuff for me. I'll even give them room in the house to set up a little shipping center where they can box it up, do the peanuts and the boxes and all the things it takes. Put a scale in there, go ahead and process it. They can haul it back to their location and ship all the online purchases out. I don't want anything to do with the shipping business, but I want to make sure it gets done.
How do they determine how much that is? I mean, the company?
That's between them and the buyer. They have a phone number, they have a copy of the invoice, and they can talk to each other. I am not in the shipping business, I don't pretend to be, and I'm not answering any questions. I'm going to hook you up, Mr. Buyer, with Mr. UPS, and you guys can work it out. Also, there is a company called Freighters, listen up, Freighters and Craters. If you're going to be in shipping bigger furniture or machinery, you can go through, or paintings, something from an estate, Freighters and Craters. That's what they do for a living. They're not cheap, but it gets shipped right, but that's between the buyer and Freighters and Craters. They are known in our industry to be the shipping company of preference. Okay? And then we talked about security already a little bit. Considerations for locating your office, I would put it either in the house or in the garage or in the shop building, or if you have a portable office on wheels, that's great. That's a trailer, super. But you have to protect the money. That's more than anything else. Set your office up with tables where people can't get behind the table where the money is. And as you receive cash, you have money bags and you draw the cash down. You don't leave a bunch of cash in a money tray. You draw it down, put it in, and you count it. You put a rubber band on it, band it, whatever you have to do, but you count that money, band it, and put it in the trunk of your car or your pickup or wherever. I recommend you get a cash register. They sell cheap cash registers at Sam's, Costco, those places. Get a digital cash register. You can program it to collect tax. Everything you need is in that cash register today with the technology we have. And then you push the button, cash drawer pops out, you make a change, you put the money back, shut it. If somebody gives you $10,000 in cash, you draw it down, wrap it, bag it, and put it in your vehicle. You have your policeman standing by your office so you don't have to worry about it, and you don't let people see you with the cash.
Yeah.
Okay, very important. You need a check-in and cashier area, registration area. It needs to flow easily and well organized. You can have single special lines for cash only or credit cards only, so you have some control, and always keep security issues on your mind. Any questions? Closing out, I'm not through. Closing out the auction, meet with your seller and provide a final settlement accounting. Listen, it's best if you can sit down with your seller.
There's one before this one.
Okay. Okay,
Date.
day of the auction. We already talked about that the other day. Arrive early for the
Yeah.
final auction preparation. Hold a pre-auction meeting with your auction crew. Meet and greet your customers. Have your opening statements and terms and conditions ready. Hand small items to the buyers or offer a secured area for storage. Assign a crew member for checkout and security. Do a lot of one-on-one checkout if you can. And then at the end of the auction, help people load out and leave the property picked up and clean. Meet with your seller and provide a final settlement accounting for the statement for the estate within the specified time in the contract. Provide your seller with tear sheets or copies of their screenshots of their advertising and their websites, all advertising and marketing. Give your seller a copy of photos from the auction if you have some good ones. Here's another thing. With the cameras that we have today, when you go look at the auction, take pictures. Take pictures of everything there that you look at, because that's what you're basing your commission on. Remember, I may have a problem with them later. The other thing is, once you start lotting and tagging the sale and organizing and cleaning and prepping and spending thousands of hours and hours getting ready for the auction, take pictures. Record your work. Then, the day of the sale, the morning of, take pictures at the very beginning when you're doing the terms and conditions. When you have the largest crowd that you're going to have at that event, that's when I want pictures taken. Not when half the people are gone. I want it at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning when everybody's standing there. And then during the day, walk around and take pictures. Have somebody do that. Just take pictures. We do it all the time, don't we? And then at the end, when we're through, pick up all the trash, move all out of the furniture. When everything's gone, take pictures again of the house empty, the trash gone, sacks of trash over here, have everything bundled up, and just have it all in a picture format. And then when you get all wrapped up, create a scrapbook or a photo album. You can do that very easily today with Shutterbug or something. Shutterfly.
Shutterbug.
That was good.
You know, I do that every time. I always say that. But, you can create a book with all the photos of Grandma's estate. They make a deal where you can get a brass plate with Grandma's name on it, and it'll say the such and such estate and the date of the event, Duncanville, Texas, goes right on the front, and you hand that to the seller, the family, and say,
that's
here's your
nice.
Grandma's estate. Let me tell you something, you'll always get their business from then on.
Yeah, I was
They'll
gonna
never
say, that's
hire another
nice.
person because you're treating them like this.
Yeah.
And you're not just mailing them a check. You hand them a check along with that book. They're gonna love you. And they're gonna look at those pictures and they're gonna think about Grandma. And sometimes Grandma's not dead. Maybe they're getting ready to put her in the restaurant. But she's there.
Every one of Rich's stories, she's
Yeah,
dead.
Grandma's dead with
But
Rich.
everybody is there, and you want to document. It's like a family reunion. A lot of these sales
Yeah.
are like family reunions. It's the last time a lot of these people will ever see each other. So you take a lot of pictures. Anyway, that's just the way I am. You can do whatever you want to do. Okay? Ask for a referral or a reference letter. Your most powerful and efficient salesman is your previously satisfied client. I guarantee.
Guaranteed.
Okay? All right, Miss Lori. That's about as fast as I can do a steak.
That was good. I think it was more in the storage units, huh? Same stuff,
It was a lot of the same stuff.
right?
Dear. I am here for you. Because you gotta remember, guys, we wanna make sure we cover everything that we need to cover for you. And still be able to leave early tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
You all wanna leave tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
You don't wanna go, I wanna stay here. I love this place.
Check out my happy place.
I thought about saying I was from Dallas, Texas. I've been here so long. The last time I sold.
There I know they are. I know I am.
You know that?
What?
I said, I feel like I've been here so long that that last time I sold, I felt like I should say I'm from Dallas, Texas.
Well, you good. Okay, listen up. Here's what I'm gonna do. I have about 4 classes I need to get done. I'm not gonna do them all right now, but here's what I am gonna do. I'm gonna tell you to take a 5-minute break, stretch, walk outside if you have to, get some air, come back in. I'm gonna do a quick class on antique and gallery auctions. Most of it's on the screen, so we'll roll through it pretty fast, okay? And then we'll be done for the day.
And then tomorrow, do we prep before the test?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Okay.
do, yeah,
Okay.
when I get ready.
Okay.
When we're ready to give it to you, I'm gonna give you the test.